On my wedding night, my mother-in-law burst into our honeymoon suite and yelled, "You need to sleep in separate rooms." I was still in my wedding dress when the door slammed open so hard it shook the paintings on the wall. My mother-in-law, Julia, stormed in, looking furious. Her face was red, and her eyes were wild. "You need to sleep in separate rooms," she shouted. At first, I thought she was joking. I even laughed. This was my wedding night, after all. But the way she grabbed the doorframe, like she was ready to drag me away, told me she was serious. My husband, Liam, just sighed, as if he had been expecting this. Then, staying perfectly calm, he said, "Actually, I have a better idea." He reached into his suit pocket, pulled out a thick envelope, and handed it to her. Her face changed instantly. She grabbed the envelope, opened it, and froze as she read. "Let me explain how we got to this point. Liam and I had been together for 4 years before we got married. I always knew his mom was difficult. She liked to control everything. She would show up at our house without warning, change our plans, and make everything about her. If we went on a trip, she would complain that we didn't invite her. If Liam bought me a gift, she would get upset that he didn't do the same for her. Things got even worse during wedding planning. She hated every choice I made. The venue was too modern, my dress was too simple, and the food wasn't to her taste. She even called the florist behind my back to change my bouquet to her favorite flowers. But Liam always stood by me. He kept telling her, "Mom, this is our wedding, not yours." She would back off for a little while, but I should have known she was waiting for her chance. Then came the wedding day, where she completely crossed the line. Right before I walked down the aisle, my bridesmaid ran up to me, panicking. "Your dress, something's wrong with it." I looked down and felt sick. The bottom of my dress was covered in dark stains. Someone had spilled coffee all over it, but there was no coffee anywhere nearby. Later, my maid of honor told me that Julia had been alone with my dress for 10 minutes before I put it on. That wasn't even the worst part. During the ceremony, she sighed loudly whenever Liam and I exchanged vows, and when the officiant asked if anyone objected, she stood up. "I just think they should take some time to really think about this," she said, as if Liam and I hadn't been together for years. Liam didn't let her ruin the moment. He shut her down immediately. "Sit down, Mom." She sat, but not before giving me a look like I had ruined her life. At the reception, Julia found a way to steal the spotlight at every turn. She grabbed the microphone during speeches to give an unplanned toast, except it was mostly about herself. She complained loudly about the music. At one point, she even took off her heels, sat right in the middle of the dance floor, and refused to move because she was too tired and it was too loud. It was exhausting, but I kept thinking, at least we're married now, at least it's over. I was so wrong. Fast forward to our honeymoon suite. Liam and I had just arrived, still happy from the night. The hotel had sent up champagne, and we were finally alone, until the door suddenly burst open. And there she was, trying to separate us on our wedding night. That's when Liam pulled out the envelope. As Julia read the papers inside, her expression changed from anger to pure panic. Her hands shook, the color drained from her face, and for the first time all night, she was silent. I didn't know what was in that envelope yet, but I could tell it was something big. Her mouth opened, then shut. She looked up at Liam, a mix of anger and desperation on her face. "You wouldn't." Liam leaned against the dresser, arms crossed. "I already did. Let me explain." A month before the wedding, Julia pulled her worst stunt yet. She called Liam's boss, his actual employer, and told them he was planning to quit. Not just that, she claimed he was emotionally unstable and needed a break. She lied, trying to sabotage his job so he'd be forced to move back home with her. But it backfired. His boss called him directly, confused, and Liam immediately knew it was her. That was the final straw. He cut her off completely, no warning, no discussion, just silence. Julia must have realized she had pushed too far. A week later, she called me, crying, begging me to convince him to talk to her. I refused, so she retaliated, ruining my dress, embarrassing us at the wedding, and now breaking into our honeymoon suite. But Liam had planned ahead. Back in the hotel room, Julia clutched the papers like they burned her hands. "This is insane," she whispered. I stepped closer, finally getting a look. It was a restraining order. I blinked. "Wait, what?" Julia's voice cracked. "You can't be serious. I'm your mother." Liam stayed calm. "And you've spent years trying to control me, ruin my relationship, and ignore my boundaries. So now, the law will enforce them for me." Julia turned to me. "You did this?" I raised an eyebrow. "Nope, this was all Liam." And it was. I had no idea he had gone to a lawyer after the work incident, but he had proof, every text, every email, every uninvited visit. The dress sabotage? That was just the final piece of evidence. The judge had signed an emergency order. The day before the wedding, Julia just didn't know what was coming. I sat up, already feeling uneasy. Then came a knock at the door. Liam sighed, got out of bed, threw on a shirt, and opened it, only to find hotel security standing there. 2 guards and the hotel manager, who did not look happy. "Sir, we need to speak with you and your wife," one of them said. My heart pounded as I grabbed my robe and rushed to the door. "What's going on?" The manager glanced between us. "I need to ask, did you threaten your mother last night?" I almost laughed. "What?" The guard didn't smile. "Your mother called the front desk at 3 a.m., claiming she feared for her life. She said she fled your room after you became aggressive." Liam clenched his jaw. "You've got to be kidding me. She told us you were holding her against her will in your honeymoon suite," the manager added. My stomach dropped. That's when I noticed something. The guards were holding a set of room keys. If we hadn't opened the door, they were about to let themselves in. "She told us she left her belongings inside," the manager explained. "She insisted she needed a way back in." I felt sick. Julia had tried to get security to unlock our room. She was setting Liam up for something. Liam rubbed his face, exhaling sharply. "Let me guess, she's not here anymore." The manager hesitated. "She checked out early this morning." "Of course she did. Cause damage, then run, classic," Liam muttered. Then, with a deep breath, he asked, "Did she give you anything? Proof?" The manager shifted uncomfortably. "She was very emotional. She had scratches on her arms." "She did that to herself," I said immediately. "Or she fell or something. Liam never touched her." The manager raised his hands. "I'm not accusing anyone, but we have to take accusations like this seriously." Liam pulled out his phone. "I have a restraining order against her, signed yesterday. Want to see it?" The manager's face changed instantly. "Julia's next move?" We left the hotel that afternoon, but as soon as we landed back home, our phones blew up, dozens of missed calls, hundreds of messages. And then, one voicemail from a police officer. "Mr. and Mrs. Carter, this is Officer Martinez with the City Police Department. We received a complaint from a Julia Carter stating she was the victim of domestic abuse at hotel name last night. We need you to come in for a statement." I nearly dropped my phone. Julia had called the police, more false accusations. The next few hours were chaos, panic, phone calls, gathering proof. Thankfully, Liam's lawyer had already been involved for months because of Julia. Security footage from the hotel showed everything, Julia entering our room uninvited and leaving just fine. No distress, no fear, no rush to escape. The restraining order showed she was already legally required to stay away. At the police station, Liam's lawyer laid it all out. The officer stayed professional, but I could tell, he knew Julia was lying. She had no proof. Just drama. In the end, no charges were filed. But they did document everything. And that report? It came back to haunt her. The final blow? We cut her off completely this time. Blocked her. Changed our locks. Told our family everything. But Julia? She still wasn't done. She had one last trick up her sleeve. A month later, Liam got a call from his bank. "Mr. Carter, we have a flagged transaction attempt on your joint savings account." I watched as his face turned pale. We didn't have a joint savings account. But guess who did? Julia. Years ago, when Liam got his first job in college, his mom helped him open a bank account. And somehow, she never removed her name from it. Now, she was trying to withdraw $10,000 from our honeymoon fund. Liam had completely forgotten about the account. But Julia? She had been waiting for the perfect moment to take advantage of it. This time, though, she messed up. The bank flagged it as fraud. And because of her false police report just weeks earlier, this was seen as part of a bigger pattern. And the best part? She had signed the withdrawal slip in person. The bank called the authorities. There was no doubt, Julia had tried to steal from her own son. And this time, she couldn't play the victim. Her life fell apart fast. Julia went from acting like the poor abandoned mother to being exposed as a liar and a fraud. Her bank accounts were frozen. Her reputation was destroyed. Family members who once defended her wanted nothing to do with her. Even her friends turned their backs when they realized she was willing to call the cops on her own son over a lie. And then came the final blow, the legal payback. After the fraud case was filed, Liam's lawyer suggested we dig deeper. So we did. Turns out, Julia had been hiding a lot: unpaid debts, credit card fraud, she secretly took out a card under Liam's name when he was in college, and even government benefits fraud. She was claiming financial hardship while secretly getting money from family. It all came crashing down. She ended up owing tens of thousands in fines and penalties. And then, the icing on the cake. The day we found out Julia lost her house, Liam and I celebrated. Not because we were cruel, but because for years, she had manipulated, controlled, and hurt the people around her. And now? She had no one left to control. The final revenge? 1 year later, we were sitting in our beautiful new home, far away from Julia's drama, when we got a letter. It was from her. She had nothing left, no home, no friends, no money. She begged Liam to forgive her. She swore she had changed and just wanted to be in our lives again. Liam read the letter. Then, without saying a word, he tossed it in the trash. I smiled. We had won, not by fighting, not by screaming, but by letting Julia destroy herself. And the best part? We took that honeymoon fund, the same one Julia tried to steal, and booked the most luxurious trip of our lives. This time, she was nowhere in sight. The end.